This is Bob. Bob doesn't like Republicans or Democrats. Instead, he wants to create his own party. The party of Bob, of course. But Bob knows that there isn't any way for him to run against the big league. At least not any legal ways. Instead, Bob is going to rig the election. Wait, isn't that illegal? It sure is. Luckily for Bob, Bob knows a couple of ways to rig the election. The same way billionaires and companies rig the elections all the time. We delve into how companies and billionaires abuse their power and wealth in order to tip the polls in their favor. And Bob is going to be the perfect example. But really quickly, we first have to show Bob how elections are supposed to work. When you go to a polling station, you have to sign a ballot. You pick which presidential candidate you'd like to see in office. Now, when you pick your candidate, you're not actually directly choosing who the next president will be. Instead, you help vote for an elector to have a seat for your preferred party in the Electoral College. The Electoral College is made up of 538 seats. The elector that wins his or her seat in the Electoral College is obligated to vote in the favor that they've been elected to vote. After 538 seats have been taken up, the numbers are counted for each party, and the candidate that has at least 270 votes wins. Simple, right? Well, not for Bob. No one knows who Bob is, anything about his party, or anything about his policies. Bob has an idea. Bob is going to pay a news channel to push his party into the light while also degrading all the other parties. He wants them to tell the world that Bob's party is the only savior of the nation and that all other parties only want to abuse the presidential seat for their own gain. If Bob can pay enough news channels to support his party, eventually everyone will begin to think that Bob is telling the truth. I mean, hey, if all news stations are telling the public the same thing, the public might believe it. It's the same that media owners take payments and donations from certain political groups to push their ideology, opinions, thoughts, and beliefs into the limelight. Media like The New Yorker, MSNBC, Fox News, Newsmax, and The American Conservative are examples of media that accept money from political groups to push an ideology. No matter what political side you stand on, your side's done it too. This goes very well for Bob. Now people are starting to hear more and more about this Bob guy and his policies. More and more people start agreeing with what he's saying, even though some of it makes no sense whatsoever. Now it's time for Bob to open Phase 2. Bob has a friend named Tom, who works as a local election official. Tom's current task is to pick the locations of the polling stations. This gives Bob a brilliant idea. Bob asks Tom to place polling stations in areas that have a dominantly Bob-leaning population. Tom agrees, and polling stations are moved from relatively fair locations to locations that are filled with Bob's supporters. There are many examples of times when polling stations were located into majorly Democratic or Republican areas. However, as you'd probably imagine, most people still aren't interested in voting for Bob's party. But Bob is 100% determined to become the president, no matter what. Bob talks to Tom again about his problems. That's when he has the groundbreaking idea of simply faking the ballots. Now, of course, this is illegal, and it's definitely not what the Founding Fathers intended. But hey, in the 2000 US presidential election, the narrow vote margin in Florida led to significant controversy and legal battles. Evidence of rigging included confusing ballot designs, improper voter purges, and disputes over recount procedures. The intervention of the Supreme Court halted recounts, effectively securing the presidency for George W. Bush. The documented irregularities and subsequent reforms highlighted flaws in the voting system. Bob is just playing by their rules. Tom then asks Bob if he also wants to gerrymander. Bob doesn't even know what a gerry or a mander is. Tom breaks it down to him. Tom explains that gerrymandering is the manipulation of electoral district boundaries to favor a particular political party or group. One party can gain more representation than its share of the actual vote would suggest. Gerrymandering undermines fair representation and distorts the democratic process by skewing electoral outcomes. One notable example of gerrymandering was the case involving North Carolina's congressional districts. In 2016, a federal court found that the state's 1st and 12th congressional districts were illegally gerrymandered to favor Republicans. The court ruled that these districts were drawn with racial considerations in mind, violating the Voting Rights Act. The decision led to redrawing the district maps and highlighted the impact of gerrymandering on fair representation. Hey guys, this part is being shot 20 hours later. Tom got arrested, obviously. Bob is sad. Very sad. But most importantly, Bob's plans of using illegal maneuvers to wiggle his way into the presidential seat failed. But Bob cannot fail now. Bob has to get his friend out of jail by becoming president. Tom is counting on him. Bob drafts up some ideas with his party, which is made up of just him, as you could have probably assumed. Bob decides he will take some inspiration from East President Putin. Putin has stayed in power since 2012, first serving 2 back-to-back presidencies in 2000. The way Putin has managed to do this is by leveraging 3 different tricks. His first and most often used trick is the suppression of opposition. Vladimir Putin suppresses opposition through a mix of tactics: legal repression with arrests and politically motivated charges, political marginalization by disqualifying candidates and controlling media, and harassment with threats or violence. Opposition leaders face obstacles in elections and are often silenced through legal and extra-legal means. Independent media is censored or shut down, creating a controlled environment where dissent is dangerous and limited. Bob has one last option. What? No, Bob, we can't create a revolution. Bob is all out of options. It looks like he can't be the president after all. What are you going to do about Tom? Who's that at the door? It's Tom. How did you get out of prison? What? Did you bribe the judge? You can't do that. Oh well, at least there's a happy ending. This funny story, however, is used to highlight the unfortunate circumstances many Americans face today. From gerrymandering to suppression of opposition, it's believed that these things are keeping America from truly being the powerhouse it could be. On a brighter note, the US government has seen its elections being rigged and has set many rigorous electoral standards to provide the public with a fairer chance for each presidential candidate. As we enter into 2024, we will truly see if the US government has been successful at quenching rigged elections.